Hey, Starting That Sign. This is Rodney G. Thank you for being with me again today. And I was just messing around with the camera on. I'm not getting any promotions for this or any payment, but I was on Riverside, which I usually don't use that often for the complete podcast. And so I had the video up, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a video one. And then my camera's on the computer is fuzzy, so I would have to go and get the other camera to see if that's any better. And I'm not 100% sure that's any better. So I was going through that, and I was like, be who you are and record it. And I'm like, nah, I don't feel like trying to. I don't know if it'll edit the sound or if the whole thing comes up. And it's too much right now. Too much. I said, forget it all. Well, almost forget all the video. So I'm going to go ahead today and talk about something off topic. So as you know, I left off pretty much leaving the hospital. Now I'm having some people help me recuperate, get back in the swing of things as a long recovery for a person that's at least receiving a transplant kidney. But we just passed trick or treat. We had Halloween. I had a couple of the grandkids this weekend. We decided to go out into the big neighborhood in Mesa, in East Mesa, and do trick or treating. This was my first time doing it. And it was so big that they actually block off streets with barricades, and they have food trucks available. And also there's a guy like in the carport. I don't know if they hired him or if it's his place, but he was, had his turntables. So he was doing mixing music. Also, it was just tons of people. Once we got out there, it was a little bit earlier. And then slowly, as it got a little bit later, the teenagers started picking up. And I got I think it's a 4 and 2-year-old about to turn 3 with us. And we had a neighbor and their little girl as well met us out there. So it's excellent. Really good time. Their bags didn't get super filled, right? Because by the time we made our way back up the street and we had something to eat, we was pretty much ready to go. Kids were tired. I was good with that. Because, you know, as I'm a introvert, when I got 300 people running around me and running past me and I got to avoid kids, that zaps a lot of energy out of me. So I was glad the kids were kind of ready to keep it moving after we ate our dinner. So while I was I was summoned to get tables, and I kind of had some chairs saved, and then another table moved, and then my wife took my table capacity away from me and sent me to go wait for the food because she had ordered the food. So I'm at the food truck, I'm waiting, and I'm just looking at people at this moment. And finally, they said the last name, Washington. I go up and I'm standing in front of the line, and I have the owner of the food truck in front of me. And my outfit was my old internship scrubs that I had when I did the veterinary social work. It was a combination between the cap and gown that I had for graduation for my master's degree. And I pulled that out the bag and I was like, well, maybe I'll sell this one day because I'm not really planning on keeping this cap and gown. And then I was like, well, I don't want to rip it up. I don't want to get it stained. And so I was going through all these different mental debates. And finally I was like, oh yeah, I have my scrubs. So basically I have a jacket, like a, I guess it was more or less considered like the doctor's version of the jacket. And I had my name and the name of the company. And then I had my old scrub bottoms on that I bought for that 6-month internship. So I go and I'm dressed and I'm waiting at this food truck, and it was a taco truck. And so they're calling everybody's name. Like I said, they finally called my name. I'm in the front of the line. Now the owner sees the logo and my name. And then he gave me like, hey, do you work at the Higley office? And I said, no, I don't work at the Higley office. I used to do my internship there, and they're starting to put veterinary social workers there. And at this time, I know you're probably like, well, this has nothing to do with kidneys. It will not have nothing to do with kidneys, but I'm going to go back and try to explain it to you. So he asked me about the scrubs I had on, and I told him, no, I did an internship, 6 months of veterinary social work. I started putting them in clinics and ER hospitals for veterinary medicine. And he goes, oh, good, because he says, I was there and I had my dog and we had to put her down, and they told me to hold on to her while they did the procedure. And I said, oh, really? And I said, so he's talking, and I was like, okay. And then, I asked a question that I probably would never ask. And I go, well, did you cry? And he said, yeah, man, I just bawled. I bawled. And I said, wow. I said, so that's exactly why that they're trying to get social workers into a lot of these facilities. because of that reading. It's because of the mental anguish that goes on when you're having to do a euthanization. He goes, oh my gosh. He says, I said, did you have a social worker in there with you? And he goes, no, this is a while back. This is like several years ago. And I said, well, yeah, now you could probably kind of see the need. And I said, was anybody there? He goes, oh, they just did the paperwork and that was pretty much it. I said, yeah. Well, I said, as a veterinary social worker, I said, we're there to help you go through the process, explain it a little more in depth, ask you what you want to do with the remains, and if you would like a follow-up call from social work. And I said, we to do grief follow-ups a couple of days afterwards just to check and see if you need any additional services or maybe experience some other issues that you didn't know that you was going to have, or maybe have other family members, including, other pets that are displaying some type of grievance or grieving, or maybe you need additional resources like paperwork, just kind of explaining the process and what you may see. So I said, there's a lot involved. Also, we could send you to different referrals and such. So by this time, I'm kind of side-eyeing the back of the crowd because I'm like, this has to be a line. And we're sitting over here talking about, pet grief. And finally, my food comes up and my wife came up at the same time, like, what is going on? And apparently she thought I was on the food truck cooking too. And I'm like, I got it. I said, I got it taken care of. I said, if you want me to do it, I got it taken care of. Trust me, I got it, So we had this long conversation, the owner and I, at this taco food truck. And after I left, I just thought, like, what a moment that we just shared in the middle of Halloween. And it was hundreds of people just walking the streets, and not to mention the crowd that was built up behind us. And I think it felt like it was just, he had an opportunity to still share his experience and how he felt. And he may not have been able to have that time to decompress and really grieve. Maybe there's so many things that go on with that. It's like people will shun you for grieving over your pet's loss. I mean, so we have to think about this. I said, in some zoos, there's somebody that takes care of the Madagascar hissing cockroach, right? Which is a real thing. That's my nerdy side coming out. The Madagascar hissing cockroach, big cockroach that hiss. Somebody's display is taking care of the hissing cockroach. And even though it may not be my cup of tea, but when one of those cockroaches die, because I'm sure people start giving names to the cockroaches and they pick them up and they let them crawl on their hands and on their neck. And like I said, that I didn't grow up with cockroaches in the house. I'm sure not trying to play with cockroaches now. But somebody's job is to take care of the Madagascar hissing cockroach. Okay, cool. But when that cockroach dies, there is still that feeling of missing out. Like, I will no longer have Petey, the hissing cockroach, every day when I come to care for it, clean its little cage out and put it on my neck while it runs across, and then put it back in and do it all over again for how many ever years. There's still a bond with that hissing cockroach, even though 90% of the people may not understand it. It's that 10. Like, no, this is who I roll with. I'll roll with the hissing cockroach. It's just this, like, a sample of thinking outside of the box, right? Not shunning somebody's pet or maybe that's their work animal. So it just really opened up a lot that we shared a moment in the middle of trick or treat, one of the biggest times of the year. The second one will be Christmas when that opens up. He has a business to run. He got a crowd behind me, and we're just in this space to the point that I'm about to get tossed up by my wife for not bringing the tacos back to the table. But we was in this moment. It was longer than a minute. In this moment, that has something to say about, one, the connection of people, two, the connection of animals and humans, and three, you can even put grieving, or maybe the lack of grieving. And the reason why I brought this up, because really the whole podcast is about the intersection of survival. It's not just solely about kidney disease. That's just where I started off with. And for me, the intersection of survival is so much more than just my kidney disease. It's surviving being child abused or sexually child abused. It's about living with a learning disability, or being neurodivergent now is the new term for it. But being definitely afraid of math, that's called dyscalculia. And then realizing I also have dyslexia. And just those two combined things just really shifted a lot in my life, including why it took so long for me to get my master's. And probably, to be honest with you, why I don't drive. And that's just the other major part is growing up in Iowa, being a Black person growing up in a predominantly white area, which was a lot as well. So I just want you to reflect on that and think about the different types of survivals, right? Things that you go through, things you need to accomplish. Okay. Next, on Friday, we'll go ahead and we'll continue moving forward with the kidney disease portion. All right, this is Rodney G. It's Garden Not Silent. If you wake up, you have a purpose. Bye.